Ephiny's frozen trick, or treat. Chapter 1. Ephiny's time. Ephiny was extremely excited as she knocked on the door. She stood on the street with a little bucket shaped like a pumpkin and was waiting at the door of a house very patiently. No answer. Ephiny knocked on the second door. No answer. Ephiny sighed. It was Halloween. She was trick-or-treating, and usually her cute little bucket was at least half full by now. She knocked on a third door. No answer. Ephiny was Grumps. Grumps is that state somewhere between not bothered and genuinely furious. Grumps. Yes, we meet one of the most important main characters of House Storm for the first time when she is Grumps. This was a very not normal Halloween, she thought. But it's okay, she considered. Maybe people just don't have the time. She sat down on a step, feeling lonely. No one else was around, and it all seemed rather quiet. The annoying thing is, she'd made a very cool costume, full of equal amounts of sparkles and eerie mischief. But no one had yet said how scary or cool she looked. Her necklace was her favourite bit. It was made to look like spider webs with delicate cotton and a cute spider on the end. Scary, but cute. That was Ephiny's costume design this year. She would always make a plan for her costumes. Very careful, considered thoughts, ideas and plans. And then she would change them all at the last minute and do something else. As Ephiny sat, she realised it was much more quiet than usual. Spookily quiet, even. Usually there's so much noise everywhere that you can't hear yourself think. But now it was like she could hear nothing and everything at the same time. She looked down the street. She could see 3 kids in the distance. They didn't seem to be moving. She walked over to them. Perhaps they were playing frozen statues, she thought. But no, they still didn't move. She waved her hand in front of one of the kids' faces, but they remained still, staring into the distance, not even blinking. She poked her tongue out at one of them and made a funny face. The person reading this will now show you the funny face she made. But still, nothing. She thought for a second and then suddenly realised something. Ephiny looked down at her wrist. She took a deep breath. Uh-oh, she thought. She was wearing a bracelet, but this was no ordinary bracelet. It wasn't part of her costume. This was a gadget that the professor, her uncle, had given her. The bracelet had several gemstones on it. There was a beautiful purple amethyst, her favourite, a cool blue sapphire, a fiery red ruby, and a rainbow-coloured opal. The red ruby was flashing. This meant that it was going a bit wrong. You see, it's very pretty, like a normal bracelet, but it can also do, from time to time, some magical things. For example, it can freeze time. It can do lots of other things too, but in this case, it was about time. Now, time is a concept that only adults think they understand, but even they don't often really understand it. Chapter 2. House Storm's detailed thoughts on time. The person reading this to you will now explain how time works. Okay. Time is an interesting concept. Time flows all around us. The ticking of a clock is time moving forwards, and everything moves forward with it. And if time were to stop, then nothing would happen, I guess. Chapter 3, Frozen Time. Now we've got that boring explanation out of the way, let's go through what it means for time to be frozen. When time is frozen, there's no ice. It's just that nothing moves, nothing happens. It doesn't get darker or lighter. The clouds don't go anywhere, and everyone is still. Birds are frozen mid-air. Their wings don't flap. Bees don't buzz, they just butt and then stop. Frozen. All except for the person wearing the bracelet. Now, usually Ephiny can control this power, and sometimes it is very useful. For example, it was or will be useful in the following adventures. Ephiny Storm and her adventures through time. Ephiny and the Great Marshmallow Moons. Ephiny and the Adventures of Stormy the Superdog. And finally, Ephiny feeling overwhelmed and just fancying a nice break. It has been told that the moon is made out of cheese, but that is not true. The moon is made out of marshmallow, clearly. That is why it's so bouncy. Yes, all of those times were super useful, but not tonight, and she knew it might happen. She'd asked the professor to fix it, but to him she was just being his silly little niece. He was too busy. He had super important adult stuff to do, he said. He had super important, world-changing adult stuff to do, he'd said the second time. He had super important, will you stop bothering me, he'd said the third time. Ephiny shook the bracelet. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. This time, it didn't work. Okay, fine. She'd have to wait. Sometimes waiting can be fun. It can be a bit boring, yes, but there are always fun things to look at in the world. It doesn't have to be boring. Chapter 4. Ephiny gets bored waiting. It had been a whole 3 minutes. Ephiny stood up. That's enough of that, she thought. She decided to take a walk around the streets. Chapter 5. Exploring the frozen street. What seemed like someone playing a trick on Ephiny soon became a treat. She took a breath in, breathing in, and breathing out. It was quite weird when time is frozen. She could hear herself breathing and her own thoughts very clearly. It felt calm. She looked at everyone around her. Now she had the time to notice many interesting things. A kid was wearing a dinosaur costume with big spikes and claws, all made out of paper. The tail had already ripped off. One kid was covered in so much tape, his costume was surely going as a sellotape roll. There was an angry-looking dog in mid-bark, its mouth wide open with its teeth showing. She bent down next to the dog. "What's up with you, little fella?" She looked around further. Someone's scarf was half flying off, suspended in mid-air, perhaps taken by the wind. Ephiny noticed it was heading towards a puddle. She grabbed one end and wrapped it back over the person's shoulder. "No wet scarves today, universe." She smiled and kept looking. But soon her smile faded and her eyes narrowed, as further down the street was a kid called Royston Malone. Say it again more dramatically. Royston Malone. Ugh, she thought. He always runs in, grabs all the sweets, more than one, and sometimes doesn't leave any for the other kids. There was a rumour that one year he stole another kid's bucket. There were also rumours that he was a demon from another dimension. There were also rumours that his feet smell so bad that every time he took off his socks, his parents fainted, which meant he had to do everything for himself. Upon sock extraction, he was on his own. Some of those things may be true, but Ephiny liked to make her own decisions. His costume was very cool. He was a rocket ship with wings and rocket flames. That being said, it didn't mean she couldn't do what was right. His bucket was overflowing with sweets, and the other kids' buckets were almost empty. Ephiny faced a choice here, in this moment in time. Do nothing, or replace his bucket with a bucket full of celery. Chapter 6. Ephiny's moral choice. Do nothing or fill his bucket with celery. That's it. That's the choice. No other option. Chapter 7. Ephiny's actual choice. Okay, maybe that's a bit much, she thought. She looked at his costume. He had lots of space stickers over it, and lots of panels coloured in with energetic crayon strokes. Someone had spent a lot of time colouring in that costume, and a lot of effort putting it together. Ephiny thought more deeply for a moment. Her eyes flickered gently as her mind bounced from one idea to the next, like a frog hopping across delicate lily pads of ideas. A chaotic splish and splash of thoughts and ideas, all eventually merging into one brilliant, beautiful lily pad of an idea. She smiled. I've got it, she thought. She took out a notepad from her bag and wrote a note on it. Dear Royston, you have been ghosted. I am the spirit of Halloween. Ooh. Kindly stop being a selfish bum. Please note, I have returned half of your sweets to the other kids. Kindly find this necklace as a reminder to be kind. Ephiny took off her Halloween necklace and folded the note over it. She took half of the sweets Royston had and put some into everyone else's buckets. She then placed the note into his bucket. Okay, time. What else? Ephiny looked around again. She looked at the kid covered in tape. He had so much that he wouldn't miss this bit, she thought. She then picked up the ripped-off dinosaur tail and stuck it back onto the other kid's costume. He was a scary dinosaur once more. Slowly, his tail began to move. Time was moving again. She looked down at her bracelet. The red ruby was no longer blinking. She heard a large sneeze and turned to look over at the dog. It gave off another large sneeze. It wasn't an angry dog. It was just having a sneeze. She chuckled to herself. Bless you, she said to the dog. Thank you, the dog's owners replied. Happy Halloween. The dog's tail wagged. It was a nice doggy. As time flowed once more, the laughter and chaos of Halloween began again. Compared to the stillness of before, this was like a spooky storm. But Ephiny found herself looking at things in a little more detail than before. The beautiful colours of everyone's costumes, the smiles on their faces, the kindness as treats are shared alongside ghostly boos and scary rahs. She knocked on the door, again. As she waited, she noticed Royston walking by, wearing her spider necklace. Ephiny smiled, pleased with herself. Hey Royston, nice rocket flames. As he said thanks with a large smile, the door opened in front of her, and an adult dressed as a giant carrot looked at Ephiny and gasped. Oh my, how scary and cool you look. Thank you, Ephiny replied, and you look very carrot-y. And from there, Halloween was a very nice normal Halloween, after all. She had lots of fun, ate too many sweets, talked to the professor for far too long, pretended to be a ghost, went to bed too late, had very crazy dreams. The end. Ephiny Storm will return.